information?
Well, I want to lay my mark on the wall. Basically, I'm worried that the people of the United States especially are jaded, and I don't think another 9/11 attack is going to do it. I have no other choice. We have to go ahead. If we're going to get ahead, we've got to blow the whistle. It's called a spoiling attack. So my idea is that we lay this groundwork. So if there is another false flag attack, and it's metaphysical, it's something that's really out of this world, that we can say, look, this is bogus. We're being conned. We've been warned that this is coming. I'm not just doing this as sour grapes. I've already spoken about this ahead of time.
Who did 9/11?
Well, I definitely think the CIA did it, the American Central Intelligence Agency. You don't hear anything about them being involved in it except for some stock market trading. That, to me, is what I call a taboo stealth indicator. Whenever there's we'll say, a wake around a radar object, in this case, there's no object, but you see a wake around it, it seems to point to me that they're at the center of it, the center eye of the storm. I think the American CIA wasn't making enough money. There wasn't a war going on, no more Cold War. They had all these operatives that they had energized during the Afghan-Soviet war, and so they staged the whole thing. They needed it. The money was tight. During the Clinton era, it was so tight you couldn't even go to, jump school. I wanted to go to jump school, and I said, look, I'll pay for it. And they said, no, can't do it. I mean, when money gets tight like that, people get crazy. So if you can remember what it was like before, 9/11, money in the military-industrial complex was tight, very tight. So they needed another boogeyman. And, von Braun warned us about it. He said that first there's going to be rogue nation states, terrorists, asteroids, and the final card will be E.T., the fear card.
Von Braun warned us about it.
Yes, to his assistant, Carol Rosen. You can look it up on the internet, Carol Rosen, von Braun warning, also in my book. But he lays out these fear cards that the establishment's going to use. The Illuminati are going to use these fear cards. And once one fear card's used up, you've got to go to the next one to create enough adequate fear. So what I'm trying to do in this book, and I have no choice, the facts point me in this direction, is towards a metaphysical 911, false flag attack of some kind.
What's this got to do with the Nazis in South America? You're losing me slightly.
Well, the point is that the human beings can make anti-gravity craft. So it's possible for human beings, if they wanted to now, especially with our advanced versions of these anti-gravity craft, to basically make it look like the aliens have landed, making a treaty with us, or being hostile, depends on how they want to play it.
And what would you say, Mike, to people who are going to email me when they hear you, and you're very enthusiastic about this, to say, this guy's just read too much fiction. He needs to do a reality check. What do you want to tell them?
Well, I would say the book is full of facts. Ian Fleming actually said these things. You can look what he says, and then you go back to the facts. Werner von Braun actually said these things. These events actually happened. We actually had UFOs with slag coming out of them. C-46 plane getting shot down. Well, Kenneth Arnold. I mean, all these things are girded in truth. Just like Ian Fleming said, everything I write has precedent in truth. Ian Fleming himself said this. And, in the end of his novel, You Only Live Twice, he cryptically writes his own obituary and says that he could not speak freely, that basically he's under the Official Secrets Act, and he has to write, in fiction and drop hints. So, all we have to do is go point by point. I say to people who don't like anything that I bring up, let's go point by point. No, most of the time people won't do that. They just are already made their mind up and they're angry, and they give you like a paragraph of complaints.
All right, well, let's wind it back then, Mike. Let's make it very, very clear for those people who will email me. Give me a timeline then, and tell me what's happened to date. Tell me the story.
Okay, 1945. Well, we'll start in 1930s. 30s, Fleming is working for MI6 through Reuters. 39 to 45, he's working for Naval Intelligence Division, second in command to Admiral Godfrey. He goes to Camp X. 41, actually a little before that, he writes the OSS charter for Donovan, goes to Camp X, becomes trained as a commando. 1945, he busts Borman out. is extremely depressed. Others have said he might have even been involved in the extraction of Hitler and Braun, like Greg Hallett in his book, Hitler Was a British Agent. That's a possibility. We know for a fact he was very depressed at the end of World War II and was drinking heavily until he decided to do something about it and write a novel. And the novel was Casino Royale, 1953. And that novel coincides with Information Research Division. In IRD. He was working for them, which is a part of MI6, and he met a Soviet defector. So he writes Casino Royale, to be positive publicity for the IRD, Information Research Department. So he writes Casino Royale, hoping it'll help the British reputation. The books start becoming popular. He gets discovered by John F. Kennedy, who puts him on his reading list. He becomes very popular. He starts cutting movie deals successfully, finally, with Broccoli and Saltzman. The movies start taking off and making, millions and millions, billions of dollars. And unfortunately, he runs out of gas. While he's writing these novels, people don't know he's working for Kemsley newspaper 9 months out of 12. He's only there in Jamaica 3 months. They make it sound like he's just a beach bum. No, he's a workaholic type A personality guy. So anyway, he dies in 1964 from a heart attack, which some people suggest may have been helped. Someone may have been worried about him writing about the Kennedy assassination because he was a friend of Kennedy's. So he may have been silenced that way. It's easy when you're not taking care of yourself.
What do you think he knew about the Kennedy assassination?
I think he knew that Allen Dulles murdered Kennedy, because Dulles botched the Bay of Pigs thing, and Kennedy said he was going to break the CIA up, and he fired Dulles. But as I point out in my book, he kept Dulles on as director for the rest of the year. You don't fire somebody and let them hang around the office, for a whole year to sabotage your business.
Well, unless you think that when they're outside the tent, they're going to do you some damage.
Well, right. Well, he was there had plenty of time to set up a conspiracy to murder Kennedy. And the facts are that Director Helms actually quoted as saying that he was part of the cabal, including Allen Dulles, that murdered Kennedy. It wasn't just these low-ranking Cubans that are mad. Those are the people, maybe operatives, but Clay Shaw and all those guys are just the lower-ranking people executing the policy and the direction from Allen Dulles. So, and Dulles may have been involved in FDR's murder, because at the end of World War II, Dulles, who was a traitor, he was working for the Germans, was under surveillance by FDR. And FDR had tapes, monitoring his conversation and everything. He was going to put him up for treason. And then, of course, FDR died. Now, no one wanted to do an autopsy of FDR, which would have possibly shown he was poisoned. So the thing is that Dulles was a scoundrel. He was a terrible traitor. So I think that Fleming and the man with the golden gun has got cryptic hints in the book that Allen Dulles is the man with the golden gun.
You see, if I knew lots of secret stuff like that, and I was coming to a late stage in my life, I'm not sure whether I want to write it cryptically in a book or a series of books. I think I'd probably, if I wanted to tell anybody about it, I'd either go and brief somebody very close to me for them to bring this information out after my death, or, write it all down, put it in a safe, and then have it discovered after I'm dead. That's the way I would do it.
Well, who's to say that hasn't happened? You bring up a very good point that I wasn't going to offer. But yes, what you're saying is probably true. There's probably somewhere some more stuff from Ian Fleming where it's totally nonfiction. But it needs to be found, if I will say no more.
And you said that you talked to the British guy who'd worked with Fleming in this special British team that helped to bust out Borman, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Christopher Crichton. Yes, sir.
And what's he told you?
Well, he told me that basically he was the second in command of British Naval Intelligence, and he had clout. And so if he says something's going to happen, it's going to happen. And that they basically made their mind up they were going to do this, and the entire establishment was behind him. So he felt that he was tight-lipped because he was still working for the establishment. I mean, he's not really – he never left British Naval Intelligence.
And did he tell you why he wanted you to know this stuff now? Why he wanted this confirmation for you to come out now? Did he explain that to you?
Well, he's already put it out together in his book in 1997, 96, 97, and it didn't cause the stir that he was hoping it was going to cause. I think it was suppressed knowledge and all that. But I think he wants these heroes, which he is a hero, he won't say it. He wants these heroes to get the credit that they're due, which is they did amazing things for England. And we should respect them for what they're doing and be like them. James Bond is real means we need to be like James Bond. We need to go find out. Every James Bond story, Fleming's saying, get out and go find out. Get to the bottom of it.
Well, he may well have done good things for England, but getting Martin Bormann out and giving him a free passage in return for money doesn't sound so good to me.
Well, true, but maybe that's probably why the story's being suppressed. It doesn't sound too good. But
so it's a dirty stain on, a big story that might be very honorable in many other ways.
Well, right. I mean, the fact that these guys took the daring of going to the middle of Berlin in 1945 and pulled this off is definitely worthy of our admiration. You can always admire our enemies, aspects of their behavior that are, above reproach. It takes courage to paddle a canoe. In the middle of a city falling to the Russians and all that. And he says that in his book that Bormann showed courage, during the escape. But, we have to take the enemy and find out why they're screwed up. I mean, the basic problem of the Nazis is snobbery. They think they're better than everybody else.
But the Nazis still exist in South America. The heirs to the Nazis anyway do. But you say that in the main, they've given up on the aims of the first generation, the ones who got out.
Yes, they've got a more kinder, gentler Nazi fascism, which is an idea that, the nation state needs to be supreme in the mind of the people, and they work through corporations.
And have you talked to anybody in South America today in 2012 who's confirmed that for you?
Well, yes, I do. I have somebody there who's confirmed that there's a lot of underground digging going on, because he's kind of in the construction business himself. So, yeah.
All right, but he said that there's underground digging to look for the remnants of underground bases that these people had. No. It's been construction all along. There's been construction since the end of World War II of underground stuff. Not wish it was searching. So they're still building it.
Yeah, they're still building stuff underground.
For what?
Well, it's just like renovations. Like you have a house, you want to renovate. So if you're already underground, you want to increase your space. You're not stagnant. You're not going to just stay with what you got.
And as far as you know, what is there? Let's spell that out very clearly. I want to be very clear. What is there in South America?
I think for sure there are underground bases. And they have a military-industrial complex where they're researching and improving their anti-gravity craft. They have unlimited funds through legitimate enterprises. So these people are trying to break the code, so to speak, on time. Anything that the mad scientists want, and they've passed it on to the second generation.
And they've got technology that they have been using to influence governments like our government, your government. But in the end, do you think that if they have that technology and they're using it out of South America, they're going to try and take the world over by themselves? That's what the Nazis wanted to do in the first place, isn't it?
Right, but they wanted to do it at first by overtly military conquest. Now they're using it by infiltration. They're trying to influence the world, take over the world by their ideals. The ideal of fascism is that your nation state is put on the pedestal, and the people in the country work through the corporations to glorify the nation state. That Nazi attitude has taken hold here in the United States. And people like Farrell and Henry Stevens, well, mostly Farrell. Stevens a little too much of a cheerleader for me.